Hello, my name is Aja Torkeldsen, and I am here to discuss my research paper review. The book I chose to read was Beauty Shop Politics: African American Women's Activism in the Beauty Industry. This was by Tiffany M. Gill. Black beauticians in the Jim Crow era gained economic independence and access to a public community with the use of beauty shops. These women often had to endure racism and economic disparities within their communities, and these beauty shops served as a safe space for them to gather and openly engage during those challenging times. This book was able to give this piece of history a voice and acknowledged aspects of African American activism that is frequently not mentioned. I'll now share why this topic was interesting to me. I wanted to extrapolate on the following topics in my research paper because I found they were the most impactful to me. And the book didn't necessarily go deep into any one specific topic. The beauty industry is something we're all familiar with today, but the history of the beauty industry and politics specifically for African American women is something I had little exposure to. After reading the book, I felt like I had learned about a bunch of unsung heroes. Their stories I wanted to learn more about and dive deeper into. Another aspect was community. Now more than ever, I realize how important community is, especially when it comes to giving out information or educating. It's eye-opening to learn about the socio-political impact that these women mentioned in this book had. Another passion of mine is healthcare and public health. These spaces were able to provide more than just cosmetology services. It's key to learning how community activism is implemented in more ways than we sometimes recognize. These spaces are places that we all go to now, and to recognize the history of how that facilitated community during times of racial injustice is important to think about and learn about. Some ways that this topic ties into what we've learned about in class includes during week 4, we learned about interviews and people as sources. This book was a secondary source, I would say, but these stories were so impactful, and Gill was able to describe them in a way that really touched me. The collective culture and building of community, though, that was described in the book is a primary source. These women that were going to these beautician salons were getting firsthand information and education. Within these communities, healthcare was able to be discussed in a more casual and comfortable manner. Programs began in these spaces, such as Madam C.J. Walker Health and Empowerment Program, Stay Beautiful, Stay Alive, and Beauty in the Breast Train, in which beauticians served as health educators, referring clients for things such as cervical and breast cancer prevention. Programs also promoted healthy eating, brought HIV testing into the beauty shops, and discussed preventative health care such as mammograms. These things that marginalized and underrepresented communities just wouldn't have access to. These amazing women also began schools to teach these trades and entrepreneurship so they could pass down something that was sustainable for their community. As I said, Madam C.J. Walker, she was a huge impact and mentioned in the book. She created her own Walker system and trained many women in this. She donated much of her time and money and efforts, and she served as an inspiration and was able to further her political outreach to many in her community. On the local level, beauticians such as Ruby Parks Blackburn of Atlanta opened up beauty shops, which were all female organizations that over the years tackled everything from environmental racism to neighborhood beautification. These are just 2 stories, and it's amazing when you start realizing the impact that these women had. Another piece that I connected this to was in week 9, we learned about implicit bias. Women in this industry during this time not only experienced racial bias towards them, but also gender bias from individuals, even from within their own communities. From the outside, these beauty shops appeared to be non-essential consumerist spaces, but in reality created social, political, and economic change. Because of this implicit bias, others who were not part of the African American community did not recognize how influential influential these spaces actually were. So with that, I suggest that you all go out, grab this book, and hopefully learn something about this community that grew up from a grassroots, beauty shop. Thank you, and stay well.